In the turbulent backdrop of Israel's unrest, an eerie connection to the four horsemen of the apocalypse has emerged, echoing ancient prophecies from the book of Revelation. Picture a white horse hinting at the Antichrist, a red one ushering conflict, a black steed signaling economic turmoil, and a pale horse casting a shadow of death. As seals are opened, judgments unfold, and catastrophic events loom. This exploration delves into biblical visions, drawing parallels to modern economic challenges, particularly inflation. In the midst of uncertainties, a resounding message echoes: find solace and hope in faith's embrace. The white horse in the four horsemen of the apocalypse is like a symbol in a big storybook, and people often connect it to the Antichrist, a not-so-friendly figure. Imagine a rider on this white horse, appearing with a bow but no arrows. A bit like having a tool for something, but not exactly what you might expect. This rider is not into big battles with swords and shields. Instead, they seem to prefer a tricky approach, like using smooth words to persuade others. It's kind of like when someone tries to convince you of something without showing their real intentions. Now let's think about this in the context of what's happening in Israel. Picture this white horse rider as a representation of certain ideas or leaders that might not be as friendly as they seem. It's like saying, watch out, things might not be as straightforward as they look. The absence of arrows tells us that this rider isn't aiming for an obvious fight. Instead, they might be trying to influence people's thoughts and decisions without using traditional weapons. It's a bit like a quiet takeover through words and ideas, which can be even more powerful than a loud battle. So in the unfolding events in Israel, when people talk about the white horse, they might be pointing to the rise of certain beliefs or leaders that seem peaceful on the surface, but could be carrying hidden agendas. It's like a cautionary tale, urging us to pay attention to the real meaning behind the words and actions of those in power. It's a reminder to stay alert and not be easily swayed by things that might look good at first glance, but could bring unexpected challenges. Imagine a story where different horses bring messages, like messengers of events. The red horse is like a symbol in this story, and people say it represents something not so nice: war and conflict. Picture a rider on this red horse holding a big sword, like a medieval knight ready for battle. This rider isn't about peace talks or making friends. The sword they carry is a symbol, kind of like a sign saying, get ready for some serious trouble. It represents not just any trouble, but the kind that involves a lot of fighting, bloodshed, and problems between people. Now let's connect this story to what's happening in Israel. Imagine the red horse galloping into the scene, bringing with it the idea of war and conflict. It's like saying, uh-oh, things might get really tough. The rider with the sword is a warning sign, a way of saying that there's a possibility of more fighting and struggles in the region. As Israel experiences unrest, people might see the red horse as a symbol of these tumultuous times. It's like drawing a parallel between the troubles mentioned in the story and the real-life challenges in the region. The potential for heightened conflict means that things could become even more difficult, with disagreements and struggles taking center stage. So when folks talk about the red horse in the context of what's happening in Israel, it's a way of expressing concern about the tough times ahead. It's like using a simple story to say, watch out, there might be more problems coming, and we need to be aware of the challenges ahead. Imagine a story where different horses bring messages about important things happening in the world. Now let's focus on the black horse in this story. It's like a symbol, and people say it brings news about economic challenges and famine, things that make life harder for everyone. Picture a rider on this black horse holding scales, like the ones you might see in a market. These scales are a way of carefully measuring things, and in this story, it's about measuring resources, like food and money. It's like a sign saying, pay attention, things might not be so abundant. Now let's connect this story to what's going on in the world today. Imagine the black horse entering the scene, bringing with it the idea of economic challenges. It's like a signal that money matters might get tough, and there might not be enough of certain things, like food. The scales the rider is holding suggest that resources are being carefully measured because they are not as plentiful as before. In the modern world, this can be linked to a term called inflation, which is like when the prices of things go up, and your money might not buy as much as it used to. This economic instability, mentioned by the black horse, is like a warning sign that life might become harder for many people. Now, think about how this connects to what's happening in the world today. When people talk about the black horse, they might be pointing to tough times with money and resources. It's like saying, be ready, things might be a bit harder for a while. The economic challenges, especially linked to inflation, can lead to societal unrest, making people feel worried and uncertain about the future. Just like the impact of the black horse in the story, let's dive into the storybook again, focusing on the pale horse, a horse that brings not-so-happy news. It's like a symbol in a big tale, and people say it's a bit grim because it represents death and pestilence, which is like a serious illness affecting a lot of people. Imagine a rider on this pale horse, and they have a name: Death. It's a bit scary, right? This rider is followed by someone named Hades, and together, they are not here for good times. They're kind of like characters in a sad part of the story, where things get really tough. Now let's connect this story to what's happening in the real world. Picture the pale horse entering the scene, and it's not bringing good news. It's a sign that something serious is happening. Maybe people are getting sick or facing really tough situations. Death, the rider on the pale horse, is not a friendly character. They are claimed to be taking lives on a massive scale, which means a lot of people are affected. This could happen through things like conflicts or other serious problems that lead to loss. In the unfolding events around us, whether it's due to fights or other reasons, the pale horse's presence looms over the situation. It's like a dark cloud in the story, reminding us that death is a real and serious part of life. It's a way of saying, look, things might be sad and challenging, and we need to face this reality. So when people talk about the pale horse in the context of what's happening in the world, they might be pointing to the tough parts of life, where people are facing serious difficulties, and we all need to be aware of the challenges ahead. It's like a message in the storybook, urging us to be strong and help each other during these hard times. As we navigate the complex tapestry of unfolding events, intertwined with the symbolic journey of the four horsemen, the message persists: seek comfort and hope in the sanctuary of faith. Whether confronting the specters of the Antichrist, conflict, economic upheaval, or the somber specter of death, the call to faith remains steadfast. Amidst uncertainties, let the timeless wisdom of enduring beliefs guide us through the storm. In the echoes of ancient prophecies and contemporary challenges, finding solace in faith becomes not just a refuge, but a beacon of resilience, reminding us that even in the darkest hours, hope is a powerful ally.